Question 1. The assessment process reveals an applicant for a competitive program at Alfaisal University is a relative of a highly influential individual within the university's broader network. While the applicant's academic profile is strong, it does not unequivocally meet the highest tier of admission standards. The admissions committee is aware of the applicant's familial connection and the potential for external influence. Which of the following approaches best upholds the integrity of the Alfaisal University admissions process and its regulatory framework? Option A. Inform the applicant that their familial connection might negatively impact their chances, suggesting they withdraw their application to avoid potential complications. Option B. Bypass the standard review process and admit the applicant directly, citing the applicant's potential and the benefits their family connection might bring to the university. Option C. Conduct a thorough and objective review of the applicant's qualifications against the established admission criteria for the program, ensuring all evaluation steps are documented according to university policy. Option D. Expedite the admission process for the applicant, granting them a place based on their familial connection and the assumption of their potential, without a full comparative assessment against other candidates. The correct answer is C. Conduct a thorough and objective review of the applicant's qualifications against the established admission criteria for the program, ensuring all evaluation steps are documented according to university policy. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires an individual to navigate the ethical and regulatory landscape of university admissions while facing external pressure. The core of the challenge lies in balancing the integrity of the assessment process with the desire to accommodate a specific situation, potentially influenced by personal connections or perceived exceptional circumstances. Careful judgment is required to uphold fairness and transparency, which are fundamental principles in any educational institution's admissions policy. The correct approach involves a thorough and objective review of the applicant's qualifications against the established admission criteria for Alfaisal University. This approach prioritizes adherence to the university's published admission regulations and guidelines. Specifically, it requires the admissions committee to assess the applicant's academic record, standardized test scores, and any other relevant criteria as defined by Alfaisal University's official admissions policy. This method is correct because it ensures that all applicants are evaluated on the same objective standards, thereby upholding the principle of equal opportunity and maintaining the credibility of the admissions process. It aligns with the regulatory framework of Alfaisal University, which mandates fair and transparent admissions based on merit. An incorrect approach would be to bypass the standard review process due to the applicant being a relative of a prominent figure. This failure lies in compromising the established admission criteria and potentially introducing bias. Such an action would violate the ethical obligation to treat all applicants equally and could undermine the university's commitment to merit-based admissions, which is a cornerstone of its regulatory framework. Another incorrect approach would be to grant preferential treatment by admitting the applicant without a full assessment, based on the assumption that their family status implies suitability. This is ethically unsound as it deviates from the principle of objective evaluation and could lead to the admission of less qualified candidates, thereby diminishing the academic standards of the university. It also fails to comply with the university's stated admission policies, which are designed to ensure a rigorous and fair selection process. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should begin with a clear understanding of the university's admission policies and ethical guidelines. When faced with a situation that might involve external influence or perceived exceptional circumstances, the professional should first consult the relevant policies to ensure all actions are compliant. If there is any ambiguity or potential conflict of interest, seeking guidance from a supervisor or the relevant university department, e.g., the admissions office or ethics committee, is crucial. The decision should always be based on objective criteria and documented thoroughly, ensuring transparency and accountability throughout the process. Question 2. Operational review demonstrates that a prospective student's application for admission to Alfaisal University is being considered, and a significant donation is anticipated from the student's family contingent upon their acceptance. The admissions committee is aware of this potential donation. Which of the following actions best adheres to the regulatory framework and ethical guidelines governing university admissions at Alfaisal University? Option A. The admissions committee should bypass the standard review process and expedite the candidate's admission based on the family's expressed willingness to donate. Option B. The admissions committee should inform the family that the donation amount can influence the admission decision, suggesting a higher donation might improve the chances of acceptance. Option C. The admissions committee should prioritize the candidate's acceptance to secure the anticipated donation, as this would benefit the university's financial resources. Option D. The admissions committee should proceed with a thorough and objective evaluation of the candidate's academic qualifications and suitability for the program, strictly adhering to the university's published admission criteria, irrespective of the anticipated donation. The correct answer is D. The admissions committee should proceed with a thorough and objective evaluation of the candidate's academic qualifications and suitability for the program, strictly adhering to the university's published admission criteria, irrespective of the anticipated donation. Explanation: this scenario is professionally challenging because it requires an individual to navigate the ethical and regulatory landscape of university admissions while upholding the integrity of the process. The pressure to admit a candidate who may not meet the standard criteria, especially when influenced by external factors like a significant donation, can create a conflict of interest and compromise fairness. Careful judgment is required to balance institutional goals with the principles of equitable access and academic merit. The correct approach involves a thorough and objective assessment of the candidate's qualifications against the established admission criteria, documented in the Alfaisal University's official admissions policy and guidelines. This approach prioritizes transparency, fairness, and adherence to the university's stated academic standards. It ensures that all applicants are evaluated on the same basis, preventing undue influence from external factors and maintaining the credibility of the admissions process. This aligns with the ethical obligation to uphold academic integrity and the regulatory requirement to follow established institutional policies. An incorrect approach that prioritizes the potential donation over the candidate's academic merit would be a significant ethical and regulatory failure. This would violate the principle of fairness and could be construed as a form of preferential treatment, undermining the trust placed in the admissions committee. It would also contravene the university's commitment to admitting students based on their academic potential and suitability for its programs, as outlined in its admissions framework. Another incorrect approach that involves circumventing the standard admissions committee review process to expedite the candidate's acceptance based on the donation would be a direct violation of established procedures and potentially university bylaws. This bypasses the checks and balances designed to ensure a fair and consistent evaluation, creating an environment ripe for bias and compromising the integrity of the university's admissions decisions. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a commitment to the established policies and ethical guidelines of the institution. When faced with a potential conflict of interest or pressure to deviate from standard procedures, professionals should: 1. Clearly identify the relevant policies and ethical principles. 2. Objectively assess the situation against these guidelines. 3. Seek guidance from supervisors or relevant committees if uncertainty exists. 4. Document all decisions and the rationale behind them. 5. Prioritize transparency and fairness in all actions. Question 3. System analysis indicates that an applicant preparing for the Alfaisal University entrance exam has heard rumors from friends about the exam's specific focus and has also seen online advertisements claiming to offer actual past exam papers. The applicant is unsure which information to trust and how to best prepare ethically and effectively. Option A. Focus general study on broad academic subjects without seeking specific information about the Alfaisal University entrance exam, assuming it covers common knowledge. Option B. Proactively consult the official Alfaisal University admissions website and the provided entrance exam handbook for definitive information on the exam scope, format, and preparation guidelines, and contact the admissions office if any ambiguities remain. Option C. Rely on the advice of friends who have previously taken the exam, assuming their anecdotal experiences accurately reflect the current exam's content and difficulty. Option D. Purchase the advertised past exam papers from the online source, believing that direct exposure to previous questions is the most efficient way to prepare. The correct answer is B. Proactively consult the official Alfaisal University admissions website and the provided entrance exam handbook for definitive information on the exam scope, format, and preparation guidelines, and contact the admissions office if any ambiguities remain. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires an applicant to demonstrate an understanding of the core principles of academic integrity and ethical conduct expected within a university setting, specifically Alfaisal University. The challenge lies in identifying the most appropriate and ethical response when faced with a situation that could be perceived as a shortcut or an unfair advantage. Navigating this requires a nuanced understanding of what constitutes acceptable academic practice versus academic misconduct. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves proactively seeking clarification and adhering to the established guidelines for the entrance exam. This demonstrates a commitment to fairness, honesty, and respect for the examination process. By consulting the official examination handbook or contacting the admissions office, the applicant is ensuring they are acting within the defined rules and regulations of Alfaisal University. This aligns with the university's commitment to upholding academic integrity and ensuring a level playing field for all candidates, as typically outlined in university policies on academic conduct and examinations. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach involves attempting to find and use unofficial study materials that claim to contain actual exam questions. This is ethically unsound and a direct violation of academic integrity principles. Universities like Alfaisal University have strict policies against cheating and academic dishonesty, which would include using leaked or unauthorized exam content. Such actions undermine the validity of the examination process and are grounds for disqualification. Another incorrect approach is to rely solely on informal advice from peers who may have incomplete or inaccurate information about the exam's content or format. A peer discussion can be helpful for general study. Basing exam preparation on unverified information can lead to misinterpretations of the exam scope and requirements. This approach lacks the rigor and official backing necessary for proper exam preparation and could result in being unprepared for the actual assessment, or worse, inadvertently engaging in prohibited activities based on misinformation. A third incorrect approach is to ignore any specific preparation guidelines provided by the university and assume the exam will cover general knowledge. This demonstrates a lack of diligence and respect for the structured nature of university entrance examinations. Alfaisal University, like most institutions, designs its entrance exams to assess specific competencies and knowledge relevant to its programs. Failing to consult official materials means the applicant is not adequately preparing for the intended assessment, potentially leading to a poor performance due to a lack of focus on the relevant curriculum. Professional reasoning. When faced with uncertainty regarding an important assessment like a university entrance exam, the professional decision-making process should always prioritize seeking official guidance. This involves 1. Identifying the source of uncertainty, e.g., exam content, format, permitted materials. 2. Consulting official documentation, e.g., university website, admissions handbook, exam instructions. 3. If official documentation is unclear, contacting the relevant authority, e.g., admissions office, examination board, for clarification. 4. Adhering strictly to the provided guidelines and regulations. This systematic approach ensures ethical conduct, fair preparation, and a clear understanding of expectations. Question 4. The audit findings indicate that the university's admissions office has been collecting more personal data from applicants than is strictly necessary for the admissions process, and this data is stored on a shared network drive with limited access controls. Which of the following approaches best addresses these findings in accordance with Alfaisal University's commitment to data privacy and relevant Saudi Arabian regulations? Option A. Continue collecting all currently gathered applicant data, but enhance the security of the shared network drive with advanced encryption to mitigate potential risks. Option B. Delegate the responsibility of data security and minimization to the IT department without further oversight from the admissions office. Option C. Immediately implement stricter access controls on the shared network drive and conduct a review to identify and delete any unnecessary applicant data, while reinforcing data minimization principles in future data collection. Option D. Inform applicants that their data is being collected for comprehensive profiling to improve future university services, and proceed with current collection and storage methods. The correct answer is C. Immediately implement stricter access controls on the shared network drive and conduct a review to identify and delete any unnecessary applicant data, while reinforcing data minimization principles in future data collection. Explanation: the audit findings indicate a potential breach of data privacy regulations, specifically concerning the handling of student application information. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing the university's need for efficient data processing with its legal and ethical obligations to protect sensitive personal data. The pressure to streamline admissions processes can sometimes lead to overlooking critical security and privacy protocols. Careful judgment is required to ensure compliance without unduly hindering operational efficiency. The correct approach involves a comprehensive risk assessment that prioritizes data minimization, secure storage, and access controls, aligning with Alfaisal University's commitment to data protection as mandated by relevant Saudi Arabian data protection laws and ethical guidelines for educational institutions. This approach ensures that only necessary data is collected, it is stored securely, and access is strictly limited to authorized personnel. This proactive stance minimizes the likelihood of data breaches and upholds the trust of applicants. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on the speed of data processing without adequate security measures would be a significant regulatory and ethical failure. This overlooks the fundamental principle of data protection, which requires safeguarding personal information against unauthorized access or disclosure. Another incorrect approach that involves sharing applicant data with third-party vendors without a thorough due diligence process and explicit consent would violate privacy laws and ethical standards, potentially exposing the university to legal repercussions and reputational damage. Furthermore, an approach that neglects to implement regular security audits and employee training on data handling protocols creates vulnerabilities that can be exploited, leading to breaches and noncompliance. Professionals should adopt a decision-making framework that begins with identifying all applicable regulations and ethical standards. This is followed by a thorough assessment of potential risks associated with data handling processes. Based on this assessment, appropriate control measures are designed and implemented. Continuous monitoring and review of these controls are essential to adapt to evolving threats and regulatory changes. This systematic process ensures that data protection is integrated into all operational activities, rather than being an afterthought. Question 5. The evaluation methodology shows a prospective student with exceptional academic records and a history of impactful community service and leadership roles. Which of the following approaches best reflects a comprehensive and equitable admissions process aligned with Alfaisal University's holistic development philosophy? Option A. An admissions process that prioritizes candidates who demonstrate a strong alignment with the current social and cultural profile of the student body, as determined by informal assessments. Option B. An admissions process that relies primarily on personal essays and interviews to gauge a student's character and potential, with minimal consideration for academic metrics. Option C. An admissions process that exclusively considers the student's GPA and standardized test scores, as these are the most objective measures of academic potential. Option D. A weighted system that assigns specific scores to academic achievements, leadership experiences, and community involvement, using defined rubrics for qualitative assessments. The correct answer is D. A weighted system that assigns specific scores to academic achievements, leadership experiences, and community involvement, using defined rubrics for qualitative assessments. Explanation: the evaluation methodology shows a scenario where a prospective student, who is a strong candidate academically, has also demonstrated significant community involvement and leadership potential. The challenge lies in balancing the quantitative academic metrics with qualitative assessments of character and potential contributions to the university community, as per Alfaisal University's stated admissions philosophy, which values holistic development. A purely quantitative approach risks overlooking individuals who may excel in non-academic spheres and bring unique perspectives, while an overly subjective approach could introduce bias. Therefore, a balanced methodology that integrates both is crucial for fair and effective admissions. The correct approach involves a structured review process that assigns weight to both academic achievements and extracurricular contributions, utilizing standardized rubrics for evaluating qualitative aspects like leadership and community service. This aligns with Alfaisal University's commitment to admitting well-rounded individuals who will thrive academically and contribute positively to the campus environment. This method ensures a comprehensive assessment, minimizing bias and maximizing the selection of students who embody the university's values. An approach that solely prioritizes academic scores, disregarding extracurricular activities, fails to acknowledge the university's stated objective of fostering holistic growth and leadership. This could lead to the exclusion of highly capable students who possess strong soft skills and community engagement. Conversely, an approach that relies entirely on subjective interviews without any academic benchmarks would be arbitrary and could lead to inconsistent and potentially biased decisions, failing to ensure that admitted students possess the foundational academic preparedness required for university-level study. An approach that focuses only on the perceived fit with current student demographics, without a clear framework, risks perpetuating existing biases and limiting diversity of thought and experience. Professionals in admissions should employ a decision-making framework that begins with clearly defined admission criteria, encompassing both academic and non-academic aspects, as outlined by the university. This framework should include standardized evaluation tools and a multi-stage review process involving diverse perspectives to mitigate individual biases. Regular calibration of these tools and processes is essential to ensure fairness and adherence to the university's mission and values. Question 6. The assessment process reveals that a highly influential alumnus has strongly recommended an applicant for admission to Alfaisal University. While the applicant's academic scores are slightly below the minimum required threshold outlined in the university's official admissions policy, the alumnus has emphasized the applicant's potential for future success and significant contributions to the university community. The admissions committee is now deliberating on how to proceed, aware of the alumnus's standing and the potential benefits of admitting a well-connected student. Option A. Propose a conditional admission for the applicant, requiring them to achieve a certain academic standing in their first semester to fully secure their place, despite not meeting the initial threshold. Option B. Recommend admission for the applicant, citing the alumnus's recommendation and the applicant's perceived potential, while acknowledging the slight deviation from the score requirement. Option C. Recommend admission for the applicant, initiating a special review process that considers the alumnus's endorsement as a significant factor, separate from the standard academic criteria. Option D. Recommend rejection of the applicant based on the objective assessment of their academic scores against the established minimum requirements, as per the university's admissions policy. Correct answer is B. Recommend admission for the applicant, citing the alumnus's recommendation and the applicant's perceived potential, while acknowledging the slight deviation from the score requirement. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between the university's stated commitment to academic integrity and the pressure to admit a student who may not meet the established criteria. Admissions committee must navigate this ethical dilemma by upholding fairness and transparency, while considering the university's reputation and the integrity of its selection process. Careful judgment is required to balance these competing interests without compromising core values. The correct approach involves a thorough and objective review of the applicant's qualifications against the established entrance criteria, documented in the Alfaisal University admissions policy. This policy, as a guiding document for the university, mandates that all applicants be assessed based on merit and adherence to stated requirements. The committee's responsibility is to apply these criteria consistently and impartially. Therefore, if the applicant's scores fall below the established threshold, the ethical and regulatory obligation is to recommend rejection, irrespective of external pressures or potential benefits to the university. This upholds the principle of fairness to all applicants and maintains the credibility of the admissions process. An incorrect approach would be to advocate for the applicant's admission based on the potential for future contributions or the influence of a prominent figure. This action directly violates the principle of equal opportunity and the established admissions criteria. It introduces bias and undermines the integrity of the assessment process, potentially setting a precedent for future deviations from policy. Such a decision would be ethically unsound, as it prioritizes expediency or external influence over objective merit, and it would be a regulatory failure by disregarding the university's own admissions policy. Another incorrect approach would be to propose a special review process for this applicant that bypasses the standard procedures. This creates an unfair advantage and suggests that the rules can be bent for certain individuals, eroding trust in the university's commitment to a transparent and equitable admission system. This is both an ethical lapse and a regulatory breach, as it deviates from the established, documented procedures designed to ensure fairness for all. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a clear understanding of the relevant university policies and ethical codes. Professionals must first identify the core principles at stake, such as fairness, integrity, and adherence to policy. They should then gather all relevant information objectively, assess the situation against these principles and policies, and consider the potential consequences of each course of action. When faced with conflicting pressures, the decision should always align with the established regulatory framework and ethical standards, prioritizing transparency and impartiality. If ambiguity exists, seeking guidance from senior leadership or the relevant oversight body within the university is a crucial step. Question 7. The efficiency study reveals that the current admissions process at Alfaisal University is time-consuming and resource-intensive. To address this, a proposal suggests implementing a new system that significantly reduces the time spent on reviewing applicant essays by using an automated scoring algorithm based on keyword analysis and sentence structure. This algorithm is designed to quickly flag essays that meet a predefined threshold of complexity and relevance, thereby expediting the initial screening phase. Option A. Reject the automated essay scoring algorithm entirely and maintain the current manual review process, prioritizing thoroughness over potential efficiency gains. Option B. Implement the automated essay scoring algorithm to expedite the initial screening, but ensure a random sample of flagged essays are still reviewed by human evaluators to validate the algorithm's accuracy. Option C. Adopt the automated essay scoring algorithm without further human review, as its efficiency gains are substantial, and it is designed to meet predefined thresholds. Option D. Integrate the automated essay scoring algorithm as a supplementary tool, providing insights to human evaluators, but not replacing their final judgment on essay quality and applicant suitability. The correct answer is B. Implement the automated essay scoring algorithm to expedite the initial screening, but ensure a random sample of flagged essays are still reviewed by human evaluators to validate the algorithm's accuracy. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the university's desire for operational efficiency with the ethical imperative to maintain academic integrity and fairness in the admissions process. The pressure to optimize processes can sometimes lead to shortcuts that compromise these core values. Careful judgment is required to ensure that efficiency gains do not come at the expense of equitable treatment for all applicants. The correct approach involves a systematic review and enhancement of existing admission workflows, focusing on streamlining administrative tasks, improving communication channels, and leveraging technology for data management, all while ensuring that the core evaluation criteria and the holistic review of applicants remain robust and unbiased. This approach is ethically and regulatorily sound because it upholds the principles of fairness, transparency, and due process inherent in university admissions. It aligns with the Alfaisal University's commitment to admitting qualified students based on merit and potential, without introducing arbitrary barriers or compromising the integrity of the evaluation process. An incorrect approach that prioritizes speed over thoroughness would fail to adequately assess the qualifications and potential of applicants, potentially leading to the rejection of deserving candidates or the admission of less suitable ones. This compromises the principle of fairness and could lead to reputational damage for the university. Another incorrect approach that involves automating subjective evaluation criteria would introduce bias and reduce the nuanced understanding of an applicant's profile, violating the ethical obligation to provide a comprehensive and individualized assessment. Furthermore, an approach that reduces human oversight in critical decision-making stages risks errors and a lack of accountability, which is contrary to professional standards of diligence and responsibility. Professionals faced with similar situations should employ a decision-making framework that begins with clearly defining the objectives of process optimization. This should be followed by an assessment of potential impacts on all stakeholders, particularly applicants. A thorough risk assessment, considering both operational and ethical risks, is crucial. Solutions should then be developed and evaluated against established ethical guidelines and university policies, prioritizing approaches that enhance efficiency without compromising fairness, transparency, and academic integrity. Continuous monitoring and feedback mechanisms are essential to ensure that optimized processes remain effective and ethical over time. Question 8. Strategic planning requires a thorough understanding of potential challenges. When developing the admissions strategy for the upcoming academic year, the admissions committee needs to consider how to safeguard the integrity of the selection process. Which of the following represents the most robust approach to identifying and managing potential risks to the fairness and effectiveness of the entrance exam and admissions process? Option A. Rely on the collective experience and judgment of senior admissions committee members to anticipate and address potential issues as they arise. Option B. Implement a reactive approach, addressing any identified problems or complaints only after they have occurred during the admissions cycle. Option C. Conduct a comprehensive risk assessment to identify potential threats to the admissions process, evaluate their impact, and develop mitigation strategies. Option D. Prioritize meeting the university's enrollment targets by streamlining the admissions process, even if it means accepting a higher degree of subjectivity. Correct answer is C. Conduct a comprehensive risk assessment to identify potential threats to the admissions process, evaluate their impact, and develop mitigation strategies. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the university's strategic goals with the ethical imperative of ensuring a fair and transparent admissions process. The admissions committee must make decisions that are not only aligned with the university's vision, but also adhere to established ethical guidelines and the principles of good governance, which are implicitly expected in any academic institution's operational framework. The challenge lies in identifying potential risks to the integrity of the admissions process and proactively mitigating them without compromising the university's objectives. The correct approach involves a systematic and documented risk assessment process. This entails identifying potential threats to the admissions process, such as bias, undue influence, or procedural errors, and then evaluating their likelihood and potential impact. Based on this assessment, appropriate control measures are developed and implemented to minimize these risks. This proactive and structured methodology ensures that the admissions process remains fair, objective, and defensible, thereby upholding the university's reputation and adhering to principles of good governance and academic integrity. While specific Alfaisal University entrance exam regulations are not provided, the general principles of risk management and ethical conduct in academic admissions are universally applicable and expected. An incorrect approach that relies solely on the intuition of experienced committee members without a formal risk assessment fails to establish a clear, auditable, and consistent framework. This can lead to unconscious biases influencing decisions and makes it difficult to identify and address systemic weaknesses. It also lacks the transparency and accountability expected in such a critical process. Another incorrect approach, which focuses only on meeting enrollment targets without considering the integrity of the selection process, is ethically unsound and professionally irresponsible. This prioritizes quantitative outcomes over qualitative fairness and can lead to the admission of unqualified candidates, undermining the academic standards of the university. A third incorrect approach, which involves implementing ad hoc measures only when problems arise, is reactive rather than proactive. This approach is inefficient, potentially costly, and does not prevent risks from materializing in the first place. It also suggests a lack of foresight and a failure to embed risk management into the core of the admissions strategy. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with understanding the objectives and the context. This is followed by identifying potential risks, analyzing their impact and likelihood, and then developing and implementing mitigation strategies. Regular review and evaluation of these strategies are crucial to ensure their continued effectiveness. This systematic approach ensures that decisions are informed, ethical, and aligned with both strategic goals and the principles of good governance. Question 9. Upon reviewing the security footage from the Alfaisal University entrance exam, a proctor observes a candidate discreetly using a small, pre-written note hidden in their palm during the examination. According to the Alfaisal University entrance exam's regulatory framework, what is the most appropriate immediate course of action for the proctor? Option A. Discreetly confiscate the note and document the incident for further review by the examination committee, while allowing the candidate to continue the exam under closer observation. Option B. Ignore the incident to avoid disrupting other candidates and address it only if the candidate's performance appears suspiciously high. Option C. Verbally warn the candidate about academic dishonesty and allow them to continue the exam without confiscating the note. Option D. Immediately stop the candidate, confiscate all their belongings, and escort them out of the examination hall pending a full investigation. The correct answer is A. Discreetly confiscate the note and document the incident for further review by the examination committee, while allowing the candidate to continue the exam under closer observation. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a student's desire to excel and the ethical imperative to uphold academic integrity. The pressure to perform well in a university entrance exam, especially one as significant as Alfaisal universities, can lead some students to seek unfair advantages. The challenge lies in identifying and addressing such attempts without compromising fairness or due process for all candidates. Careful judgment is required to distinguish between legitimate preparation and academic misconduct. The correct approach involves a thorough and impartial investigation of any suspected irregularities, adhering strictly to the Alfaisal University entrance exams' established rules and guidelines. This means gathering all relevant evidence, providing the student with an opportunity to respond to the allegations, and making a decision based solely on the facts and the university's academic integrity policy. This approach is ethically sound and professionally responsible because it upholds the principles of fairness, transparency, and accountability. It ensures that the integrity of the examination process is maintained, protecting the value of the qualification for all students. The regulatory framework for university entrance exams typically mandates such procedures to prevent cheating and ensure a level playing field. An incorrect approach would be to immediately disqualify the student based on suspicion alone, without a proper investigation, or allowing the student to present their side. This fails to uphold the principle of natural justice and could lead to an unjust outcome. It violates the university's commitment to due process and could expose the institution to reputational damage. Another incorrect approach would be to ignore the suspected irregularity, thereby compromising the integrity of the examination and potentially allowing an unqualified student to gain admission. This undermines the credibility of the entire admission process and is a dereliction of professional duty. A third incorrect approach would be to apply a penalty that is disproportionate to the alleged offense without considering the context or the student's intent, which also violates principles of fairness and proportionality as often outlined in academic regulations. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a systematic approach. First, clearly identify the suspected violation and the specific rule or guideline that has been breached. Second, gather all available evidence objectively. Third, consult the relevant university policies and procedures for handling academic misconduct. Fourth, provide the accused student with clear notification of the allegations and an opportunity to respond. Fifth, conduct a fair and impartial review of the evidence and the student's response. Finally, make a decision based on the findings and communicate it clearly, outlining the rationale and any consequences. This structured process ensures that decisions are well-reasoned, consistent, and defensible, upholding both academic standards and ethical conduct. Question 10. Quality control measures reveal a discrepancy in the application of a highly recommended candidate for the Alfaisal University entrance exam. While the candidate possesses strong extracurricular achievements and compelling personal essays, one standardized test score falls below the minimum threshold outlined in the university's admission guidelines. The admissions committee is aware of the candidate's influential family connections. What is the most appropriate course of action for the admissions committee to ensure a fair and compliant admission decision? Option A. Discuss the candidate's application and the test score discrepancy with university alumni who are not part of the admissions committee to gauge their opinion on the candidate's suitability. Option B. Conduct a comprehensive review of the candidate's entire application, seeking clarification on the lower test score from the applicant and relevant academic departments, and then make a decision based on all available evidence and university policy. Option C. Admit the candidate based on their influential family connections and strong extracurricular achievements, overriding the lower test score to secure a potentially valuable future alumnus. Option D. Immediately reject the candidate's application due to the single test score falling below the minimum threshold, without further investigation or consideration of other application components. Correct answer is B. Conduct a comprehensive review of the candidate's entire application, seeking clarification on the lower test score from the applicant and relevant academic departments, and then make a decision based on all available evidence and university policy. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between maintaining academic integrity and the pressure to admit qualified candidates. The admissions committee must navigate the ethical imperative of fair and unbiased evaluation against the university's strategic goals and the potential reputational damage of admitting students who do not meet established criteria. The decision requires careful judgment to uphold the university's standards while considering all relevant factors within the established admission guidelines. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a thorough, documented review of the applicant's profile against the established admission criteria, seeking clarification from the applicant and relevant faculty, and making a decision based on the collective evidence and adherence to university policy. This upholds academic integrity by ensuring that all admissions decisions are based on objective evaluation and established standards, as mandated by Alfaisal University's admission regulations and ethical guidelines for academic institutions. It demonstrates a commitment to fairness and transparency in the admissions process. Incorrect approaches analysis. An approach that prioritizes the applicant's potential connections or perceived future contributions without rigorous adherence to admission criteria fails to uphold academic integrity and risks setting a precedent for favoritism, violating the principle of equal opportunity for all applicants. This bypasses the established regulatory framework for admissions, an approach that immediately rejects the applicant based on a single piece of potentially incomplete information, without seeking further clarification or considering the applicant's overall profile, demonstrates a lack of due diligence and may lead to the exclusion of a deserving candidate. This is contrary to a comprehensive and fair evaluation process, an approach that involves discussing the applicant's confidential information with individuals outside the admissions committee who are not authorized to participate in the decision-making process, constitutes a breach of confidentiality and ethical conduct, undermining the integrity of the admissions process and potentially violating university privacy policies. Professional reasoning. Professionals in university admission should employ a structured decision-making framework that begins with understanding and strictly adhering to the university's official admission policies and guidelines. This framework should include steps for objective evaluation of all application components, seeking clarification when necessary, consulting with relevant stakeholders within the authorized committee structure, and documenting the rationale for every decision. Transparency, fairness, and integrity must be the guiding principles throughout the process. Question 11. Strategic planning requires a clear understanding of the university's mission and values when developing admissions policies. Alfaisal University's admissions committee is reviewing applications for the upcoming academic year. The committee has received a significantly higher number of applications than available spots, and there is pressure from some stakeholders to admit a certain number of students from specific regions to enhance international diversity. Even if some of these applicants do not fully meet the established academic thresholds, the committee must decide how to proceed while upholding the integrity of the admissions process. Which of the following approaches best aligns with Alfaisal University's regulatory framework and ethical guidelines for admissions? Option A. Strictly adhere to the published academic and non-academic admission criteria for all applicants, ensuring a fair and objective evaluation process, and address diversity goals through targeted outreach and support programs for qualified applicants. Option B. Focus primarily on meeting the enrollment quota for the year, admitting the highest scoring applicants regardless of whether they meet all other published criteria to ensure financial stability. Option C. Prioritize admitting students from specific regions to meet diversity targets, even if it means slightly lowering the academic threshold for these candidates to fulfill stakeholder expectations. Option D. Allow individual committee members to use their discretion to admit candidates they believe would be a good fit for the university, even if they do not meet all the stated requirements, to foster a more holistic selection. The correct answer is C. Prioritize admitting students from specific regions to meet diversity targets, even if it means slightly lowering the academic threshold for these candidates to fulfill stakeholder expectations. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the university's strategic goals with the ethical obligations of its admissions committee. The admissions committee must ensure fairness and transparency in its selection process, adhering strictly to the established criteria and guidelines set forth by Alfaisal University. The pressure to meet enrollment targets or to favor certain candidates can compromise the integrity of the admissions process, leading to potential reputational damage and a breach of trust. Careful judgment is required to navigate these competing pressures while upholding the university's commitment to merit-based admissions. The correct approach involves a rigorous and objective evaluation of all applicants based solely on the published admission criteria. This ensures that the selection process is fair, transparent, and defensible. Adherence to the Alfaisal University's admissions regulations and ethical guidelines is paramount. This approach upholds the principle of equal opportunity and ensures that admitted students are those best suited to succeed at the university, thereby contributing to the academic excellence and reputation of Alfaisal University. An incorrect approach that prioritizes meeting enrollment targets over established criteria would be ethically unsound and a violation of university policy. This undermines the fairness of the admissions process and could lead to the admission of less qualified candidates, potentially impacting academic standards. Another incorrect approach that involves subjective bias or favoritism towards specific applicants, regardless of their qualifications, is a direct breach of ethical conduct and university regulations. Such actions erode trust in the admissions process and can lead to accusations of discrimination or unfairness. Professionals in admissions should employ a decision-making framework that begins with a thorough understanding of all relevant university policies, admission criteria, and ethical guidelines. They should then systematically apply these criteria to each applicant without prejudice. In situations of ambiguity or pressure, seeking guidance from senior university officials or the admissions committee chair is crucial. The decision-making process should be documented to ensure accountability and transparency. Question 12. Examination of the data shows a significant number of applications for the upcoming Alfaisal University entrance exam exhibit minor inconsistencies in submitted documentation, with a particular applicant's submitted scores appearing unusually high compared to their previous academic records. The admissions office is under pressure to meet enrollment targets for the upcoming academic year. What is the most ethically and procedurally sound approach to address these discrepancies? Option A. Discreetly contact the applicant to request clarification on the discrepancies, offering to adjust their submitted information if necessary to align with expectations. Option B. Instruct the admissions team to overlook the minor inconsistencies in documentation and focus solely on the applicant's stated scores to expedite the admission process. Option C. Initiate a formal review process involving the relevant academic integrity committee to investigate the applicant's submitted scores and documentation thoroughly, adhering strictly to university policy on admissions and academic honesty. Option D. Proceed with the admission of the applicant, assuming the discrepancies are minor clerical errors, to ensure enrollment targets are met. The correct answer is C. Initiate a formal review process involving the relevant academic integrity committee to investigate the applicant's submitted scores and documentation thoroughly, adhering strictly to university policy on admissions and academic honesty. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a challenge in academic integrity and ethical conduct within the university's admission process. The pressure to meet enrollment targets can create an environment where individuals might be tempted to overlook or downplay discrepancies, but upholding the university's standards and the fairness of the entrance exam is paramount. The professional challenge lies in balancing institutional goals with the ethical obligation to ensure a fair and transparent admission process, preventing any form of academic misconduct. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a thorough and impartial investigation of the identified discrepancies. This aligns with Alfaisal University's commitment to academic integrity and its established admission policies, which are designed to ensure that all applicants are evaluated fairly based on their qualifications and performance in the entrance examination. This approach upholds the principle of meritocracy and prevents any undue advantage, thereby maintaining the credibility of the university's admissions. Incorrect approach is analysis. Failing to investigate the discrepancies and proceeding with the admission would be a direct violation of academic integrity principles and potentially university policy. It would set a precedent for overlooking irregularities and could lead to the admission of unqualified candidates, undermining the academic standards of Alfaisal University. Attempting to resolve the discrepancies by altering the applicant's scores or documentation, even with the intention of meeting enrollment targets, constitutes academic misconduct and fraud. This action directly contravenes ethical guidelines and university regulations regarding the integrity of examination processes and admissions data. Consulting with the applicant directly to clarify the discrepancies without involving the appropriate university oversight committee or admissions board is also problematic. This bypasses established protocols for handling such issues, potentially leading to biased interpretations or an attempt to conceal the irregularities, which is ethically unsound and against procedural fairness. Professional reasoning. Professionals in university admissions and academic administration should follow a structured decision-making process when encountering potential irregularities. This process typically involves 1. Identifying and documenting the discrepancy. 2. Consulting relevant university policies and ethical guidelines. 3. Escalating the issue to the appropriate authority or committee, e.g., Admissions Committee, Academic Integrity Board. 4. Conducting a fair and impartial investigation, ensuring due process for the applicant. 5. Making a decision based on evidence and established policies, prioritizing academic integrity and fairness. Question 13. Assessment of a prospective student's understanding of academic integrity principles in the context of the Alfaisal University entrance exam, considering the university's specific guidelines on acceptable preparation methods. Option A. The student decides to extensively memorize common question formats and potential answers from various unofficial study guides, believing this is a standard and acceptable way to prepare for competitive exams. Option B. The student relies on general advice from online forums about common university entrance exam preparation strategies, assuming these are universally applicable. Option C. The student brings a personal notebook containing summarized notes and formulas to the examination hall, believing it is a helpful personal study aid. Option D. The student consults the official Alfaisal University entrance exam handbook and any supplementary materials provided by the university to understand the precise rules regarding preparation and the use of external resources during the examination period. Correct answer is D. The student consults the official Alfaisal University entrance exam handbook and any supplementary materials provided by the university to understand the precise rules regarding preparation and the use of external resources during the examination period. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a student's desire to excel and the university's commitment to academic integrity. The pressure to perform well in a high-stakes entrance exam can lead students to consider unethical shortcuts. Careful judgment is required to uphold the principles of fairness and honesty that are fundamental to the educational environment. The correct approach involves a student proactively seeking clarification on the exam's rules and regulations, particularly concerning the use of external resources. This demonstrates a commitment to ethical conduct and a genuine desire to understand the boundaries of acceptable behavior. By adhering to the explicit guidelines provided by Alfaisal University for its entrance exam, the student ensures they are acting within the established framework, thereby respecting the integrity of the assessment process. This proactive stance aligns with the university's stated commitment to academic honesty and fair evaluation, preventing any potential accusations of misconduct. An incorrect approach would be to assume that general knowledge or commonly accepted study practices are permissible without explicit confirmation. This could lead to a violation of specific exam rules, even if unintentional. For instance, relying on pre-memorized answers to potential questions or using unauthorized study aids during the exam period, even if not physically present during the test, could be construed as an attempt to gain an unfair advantage, violating the spirit of a merit-based assessment. Another incorrect approach involves misinterpreting the scope of permitted resources. If the exam guidelines clearly state that only approved materials are allowed, then bringing in any other form of external information, even if it seems innocuous, constitutes a breach. This demonstrates a lack of diligence in understanding and adhering to the specific requirements of the Alfaisal University entrance exam, potentially leading to disqualification or other disciplinary actions. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a clear understanding of the governing rules and regulations. When in doubt, always err on the side of caution and seek explicit clarification from the relevant authority. In this case, the Alfaisal University Admissions or Examination Board. Prioritizing transparency and adherence to established protocols is paramount to maintaining professional integrity and ensuring a fair and equitable assessment for all candidates. Question 14. Which approach would be most appropriate for the admissions committee to address an applicant's claim of a procedural irregularity during the Alfaisal University entrance exam, where the applicant alleges a proctor provided unauthorized assistance? Option A. Initiate a formal investigation into the alleged procedural irregularity by reviewing examination logs, proctor statements, and any available surveillance footage, while adhering strictly to the Alfaisal University entrance exam's established appeals process. Option B. Offer the applicant a re-examination under different conditions as a gesture of goodwill, without a formal review of the initial examination's integrity. Option C. Immediately dismiss the applicant's claim as unsubstantiated, assuming the proctor acted within their duties unless concrete proof of misconduct is presented by the applicant. Option D. Consult with the proctor involved to gauge their perspective and make a decision based on their assurance that no irregularity occurred. The correct answer is A. Initiate a formal investigation into the alleged procedural irregularity by reviewing examination logs, proctor statements, and any available surveillance footage, while adhering strictly to the Alfaisal University entrance exam's established appeals process. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the university's commitment to academic integrity with the need to provide a fair and supportive environment for students. The entrance exam is a critical gateway, and any perceived unfairness or procedural error could have significant consequences for both the applicant and the university's reputation. The challenge lies in identifying and rectifying potential issues without compromising the validity of the examination process or unfairly disadvantaging any candidate. Careful judgment is required to ensure that any action taken is both procedurally sound and ethically defensible, adhering strictly to the Alfaisal University entrance exam regulations. The correct approach involves a thorough, impartial review of the applicant's concerns, cross-referencing them with the established examination procedures and guidelines. This approach prioritizes fairness and due process by seeking objective evidence and applying the university's own rules consistently. It acknowledges the applicant's right to appeal and ensures that any decision is based on a factual assessment of the situation against the defined regulatory framework of the Alfaisal University entrance exam. This upholds the principle of academic integrity and demonstrates the university's commitment to transparent and equitable admissions processes. An incorrect approach that involves immediate dismissal of the applicant's concerns without investigation fails to uphold the principles of fairness and due process. It risks overlooking genuine procedural errors or mitigating circumstances, potentially leading to an unjust outcome and damaging the university's reputation for impartiality. This approach violates the implicit ethical obligation to treat all applicants with respect and to provide a mechanism for addressing grievances. Another incorrect approach, such as making a decision based on anecdotal evidence or personal bias, directly contravenes the requirement for objective assessment. This introduces subjectivity into a process that must be governed by established rules and regulations, thereby undermining the integrity of the entrance examination. It also risks creating a precedent for inconsistent application of rules, which is detrimental to maintaining a credible admission system. A further incorrect approach, which involves altering examination results or procedures to accommodate the applicant without a clear, documented justification and adherence to established appeal protocols, compromises the validity of the entire examination. This can be seen as preferential treatment, which is ethically unsound and can lead to legal challenges and a loss of confidence in the university's admission standards. It bypasses the structured review process designed to ensure fairness and accuracy. The professional decision-making process in such situations should involve a structured, evidence-based approach. First, clearly understand the applicant's grievance and the specific regulations of the Alfaisal University entrance exam that are alleged to have been violated. Second, gather all relevant information, including examination records, proctor reports, and any submitted evidence from the applicant. Third, conduct an impartial review of this information against the university's stated policies and procedures. Fourth, make a decision based solely on the findings of this review and communicate the outcome clearly and respectfully to the applicant, outlining the rationale and any further steps available. Question 15. Implementation of a strategy that involves discreetly consulting pre-memorized formulas not explicitly permitted for use during the Alfaisal University entrance exam, with the belief that this will significantly improve the chances of securing a scholarship, is being considered by a candidate. Option A. Ask a proctor for clarification on whether specific memorized formulas are allowed, even if the exam instructions are clear. Option B. Refuse to use any pre-memorized formulas not explicitly permitted and rely solely on knowledge and permitted materials during the exam. Option C. Attempt to gain access to the exam questions beforehand to ensure a perfect score. Option D. Discreetly consult pre-memorized formulas not explicitly permitted during the exam to maximize the chances of securing the scholarship. The correct answer is B. Refuse to use any pre-memorized formulas not explicitly permitted and rely solely on knowledge and permitted materials during the exam. Explanation. This scenario is professionally challenging because it pits the immediate desire for a positive outcome, securing a scholarship, against the fundamental ethical obligation of academic integrity and honesty. The pressure to succeed in a competitive entrance exam environment can lead individuals to consider shortcuts, making careful judgment crucial. The correct approach involves prioritizing honesty and adherence to the university's academic integrity policies. This means refraining from any form of academic dishonesty, including seeking unauthorized assistance or using prohibited materials. The justification lies in the core principles of ethical conduct expected of all students, particularly within an academic institution like Alfaisal University. Upholding these principles ensures a fair and equitable assessment process for all candidates and maintains the credibility of the university's admissions and academic standards. The Alfaisal University entrance exam regulations, like those of most reputable institutions, strictly prohibit any form of cheating or academic misconduct. An incorrect approach would be to engage in any form of academic dishonesty, such as attempting to access or use unauthorized information during the exam. This directly violates the Alfaisal University entrance exam regulations concerning academic integrity and honesty. Such actions undermine the fairness of the assessment, devalue the achievements of honest candidates, and can lead to severe penalties, including disqualification from the exam and potential future academic repercussions. Another incorrect approach would be to justify such actions by focusing solely on the perceived benefits of obtaining the scholarship, disregarding the ethical implications and regulatory framework. This demonstrates a failure to understand the paramount importance of integrity in academic pursuits and a disregard for the established rules. Professionals in academic and professional settings should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes ethical considerations and adherence to established rules. This involves 1. Identifying the ethical dilemma and the conflicting values. 2. Consulting relevant regulations and policies, in this case, Alfaisal University entrance exam guidelines. 3. Evaluating the potential consequences of each course of action, both for oneself and for others. 4. Choosing the action that aligns with ethical principles and regulatory requirements, even if it presents a more challenging path. Question 16. Quality control measures reveal that a fellow applicant for Alfaisal University has submitted a personal essay that bears striking similarities to a published work, raising concerns about potential plagiarism. As an applicant who has diligently prepared your own application materials, how should you proceed? Option A. Ignore the observation, as it is not your responsibility to police other applicants. Option B. Discuss the observation with other applicants to gauge their opinions before deciding on a course of action. Option C. Report the observed similarities to the Alfaisal University admissions office with factual details. Option D. Confront the fellow applicant directly and demand they withdraw their application. The correct answer is C. Report the observed similarities to the Alfaisal University admissions office with factual details. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires an applicant to demonstrate an understanding of the ethical and regulatory expectations governing academic integrity and the admissions process at Alfaisal University. The challenge lies in identifying the most appropriate and ethically sound response when faced with potential academic misconduct by a peer, balancing the desire to uphold standards with the implications of reporting. Careful judgment is required to navigate the university's specific policies and the broader ethical principles of fairness and honesty. The correct approach involves a direct and transparent communication with the relevant university admissions authority. This approach is right because it adheres to the principle of academic integrity, which is a cornerstone of university admissions. By reporting the observed discrepancy in a factual and objective manner, the applicant is upholding the university's commitment to admitting students based on genuine merit and qualifications. This aligns with the Alfaisal University's likely regulatory framework, which would emphasize honesty and the prohibition of academic dishonesty in the application process. This method ensures that the university can investigate the matter appropriately and maintain the fairness and credibility of its admissions. An incorrect approach would be to ignore the discrepancy. This is ethically unacceptable because it tacitly condones academic dishonesty and undermines the integrity of the admissions process. It fails to uphold the university's standards and could lead to an unqualified candidate being admitted, which is unfair to other applicants. Another incorrect approach would be to confront the peer directly and demand they withdraw their application. This is problematic because it bypasses the official university channels for addressing such issues. While the intention might be to rectify the situation, it is not the applicant's role to act as an arbiter or enforcer of university policy. This approach could lead to unnecessary conflict and does not guarantee a resolution that aligns with the university's procedures. Furthermore, it could be perceived as an attempt to unfairly influence the admissions process through personal intervention rather than through established reporting mechanisms. A professional decision-making process for similar situations involves 1. Identifying the potential ethical or regulatory breach. 2. Consulting relevant university policies or guidelines regarding academic integrity and admissions. 3. Choosing the most direct and appropriate channel for reporting or seeking clarification, which is typically an official university body. 4. Maintaining objectivity and factual accuracy in any communication. 5. Avoiding personal judgment or direct intervention in matters that fall under the purview of university administration. Question 17. During the evaluation of applications for the Alfaisal University entrance exam, the admissions committee is reviewing a candidate's profile. The applicant has demonstrated strong academic performance throughout their secondary education, achieving excellent grades in relevant subjects. However, their standardized test scores are slightly below the average for admitted students. The committee also notes a compelling personal essay that articulates a clear passion for their chosen field of study and significant involvement in community service activities that showcase leadership potential. Which approach best upholds the principles of fair and comprehensive evaluation for university admissions? Option A. Give significant weight to the applicant's community service activities and leadership potential, assuming these qualities are more indicative of future success than academic performance or test scores. Option B. Exclude the applicant based on their standardized test scores being below the average, as these scores are considered the primary determinant of academic readiness. Option C. Prioritize the applicant's strong academic record and compelling personal essay, recognizing their potential for success and contribution to the university, while considering the standardized test scores as one factor among many. Option D. Focus primarily on the applicant's standardized test scores, as they provide the most objective measure of academic capability, and downplay the importance of the personal essay and extracurricular activities. The correct answer is C. Prioritize the applicant's strong academic record and compelling personal essay, recognizing their potential for success and contribution to the university, while considering the standardized test scores as one factor among many. Explanation. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing the university's commitment to academic integrity with the need to fairly assess applicants. The admissions committee must navigate potential biases, ensure a consistent evaluation process, and uphold the university's reputation. Careful judgment is required to avoid both overlooking deserving candidates and admitting those who may not meet the university's standards. The correct approach involves a holistic review of the applicant's profile, considering all submitted materials without undue emphasis on any single factor. This aligns with the principles of fair and equitable assessment, ensuring that each applicant is judged on their merits and potential contribution to the university community. It respects the diversity of applicant experiences and backgrounds, which is a cornerstone of a robust academic institution. An approach that solely prioritizes standardized test scores, while seemingly objective, fails to acknowledge the multifaceted nature of academic potential and can disadvantage students from diverse educational backgrounds or those who excel in areas not captured by a single test. This can lead to an unfair exclusion of capable individuals. An approach that relies heavily on subjective impressions or personal anecdotes from recommenders, without corroborating evidence from academic records or other application components, risks introducing bias and inconsistency into the evaluation process. This can undermine the fairness and credibility of the admissions decision. An approach that focuses exclusively on extracurricular achievements to the detriment of academic performance may not accurately reflect an applicant's readiness for the rigorous academic demands of university-level study. This could lead to admitting students who struggle to succeed in their coursework. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve establishing clear, objective criteria for evaluation that are applied consistently to all applicants. This includes defining the relative weight given to different components of the application. Regular training for admissions committees on bias awareness and fair evaluation practices is crucial. Furthermore, a system for review and appeal of admissions decisions can help ensure fairness and transparency. Question 18. The risk matrix shows a moderate likelihood of student dissatisfaction due to perceived delays in academic advising, alongside a high impact on student retention if this issue is not addressed. Considering Alfaisal University's commitment to student success and its established academic policies, which approach to optimizing the academic advising process is most professionally sound. Option A. Delegate the entire process optimization task to an external consultant without providing them with specific university policy guidelines or ethical frameworks. Option B. Implement a new digital appointment booking system immediately to reduce wait times without extensive prior testing or student feedback. Option C. Reduce the number of required advising sessions per semester to free up advisor time, assuming this will indirectly improve student satisfaction by reducing perceived pressure. Option D. Conduct a thorough review of current advising workflows, gather feedback from both students and advisors, and pilot potential process improvements in a controlled environment before full rollout. The correct answer is B. Implement a new digital appointment booking system immediately to reduce wait times, without extensive prior testing or student feedback. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the need for efficient process optimization with the imperative to adhere to Alfaisal University's established academic integrity policies and ethical guidelines. The pressure to demonstrate rapid improvement can tempt individuals to overlook crucial procedural steps or to adopt shortcuts that might compromise the integrity of the data or the fairness of the process. Careful judgment is required to ensure that optimization efforts do not inadvertently lead to academic misconduct or a breach of trust. The correct approach involves a systematic review of existing processes, identifying bottlenecks and inefficiencies, and proposing improvements that are aligned with Alfaisal University's regulations and ethical standards. This includes ensuring that any proposed changes are transparent, well-documented, and do not disadvantage any student group or compromise the fairness of assessments. Specifically, this approach prioritizes understanding the root causes of inefficiencies and developing solutions that are sustainable and ethically sound, thereby upholding the university's commitment to academic excellence and integrity. This aligns with the overarching ethical duty of professionals to act with honesty and integrity in all their dealings, and specifically within an academic context, to foster a fair and equitable learning environment. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on speed without considering the impact on fairness or adherence to policy would be professionally unacceptable. This could involve implementing changes that are not properly vetted or approved, potentially leading to unintended consequences such as biased outcomes or a violation of student privacy. Such an approach fails to uphold the ethical principle of fairness and could contravene university regulations regarding process implementation and data handling. Another incorrect approach might involve prioritizing cost savings over the quality or integrity of the optimized process. While efficiency is important, compromising essential checks and balances, or reducing the rigor of evaluation in the name of cost reduction, can lead to flawed outcomes and undermine the credibility of the university's academic programs. This neglects the ethical responsibility to ensure that all processes serve the primary goal of enhancing the educational experience and maintaining high academic standards. A further incorrect approach could be to implement changes based on anecdotal evidence or personal preference without rigorous data analysis or consultation with relevant stakeholders. This lacks the professional discipline of evidence-based decision-making and risks introducing new inefficiencies or inequities. It fails to adhere to the ethical principle of due diligence and can lead to decisions that are not in the best interest of the university community. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured approach. First, clearly define the problem or inefficiency. Second, gather relevant data and understand the existing process. Third, identify potential solutions, considering their impact on all stakeholders and their alignment with regulatory and ethical frameworks. Fourth, evaluate the feasibility and consequences of each solution. Fifth, select the most appropriate solution based on a comprehensive assessment. And finally, implement, monitor, and review the changes to ensure their effectiveness and continued compliance. Question 19. Performance analysis shows that a prospective applicant for Alfaisal University's entrance exam is unsure about the exact scope and format of the examination, particularly whether studying past examination papers is an acceptable preparation method. What is the most appropriate and ethically sound course of action for this applicant? Option A. Seek advice from current Alfaisal University students about the specific topics and difficulty of previous entrance exams. Option B. Assume that publicly available past examination papers are permissible study materials and focus preparation on those. Option C. Proactively contact the Alfaisal University admissions office to request official guidance on recommended preparation materials and the scope of the entrance exam. Option D. Concentrate preparation efforts on broad general knowledge related to the university's academic disciplines without seeking specific exam guidance. The correct answer is C. Proactively contact the Alfaisal University admissions office to request official guidance on recommended preparation materials and the scope of the entrance exam. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires an applicant to demonstrate an understanding of the core principles of academic integrity and ethical conduct expected at Alfaisal University, specifically in the context of an entrance examination. The challenge lies in identifying the most appropriate and ethical response when faced with a situation that could be perceived as a shortcut or an attempt to gain an unfair advantage, even if unintentional. Careful judgment is required to distinguish between acceptable preparation methods and those that cross ethical boundaries. The correct approach involves proactively seeking clarification from the university regarding the scope and nature of the examination materials. This demonstrates a commitment to understanding the rules and expectations, a willingness to engage with the institution's guidelines, and an ethical stance that prioritizes fair play and academic honesty. By directly contacting the admissions office, the applicant adheres to the principle of transparency and ensures they are preparing in a manner that aligns with Alfaisal University's stated policies and values, which are paramount in any university entrance process. This proactive communication is the most responsible and ethically sound method for addressing uncertainty about exam content. An incorrect approach would be to assume that past exam papers, even if publicly available, are implicitly permitted for direct study without explicit university confirmation. This fails to acknowledge the university's right to set its own examination standards and the potential for changes in curriculum or focus. Relying on such materials without verification could lead to misinterpretation of the exam's intent and potentially violate academic integrity principles if the university has specific guidelines against using such resources for direct preparation. Another incorrect approach would be to consult with current students about the specific topics covered in previous entrance exams. While seemingly helpful, this can lead to an over-reliance on anecdotal information, which may be inaccurate, outdated, or biased. More importantly, it bypasses the official channels of communication and could be seen as an attempt to gain an unfair advantage by seeking insider information, undermining the principle of a level playing field for all applicants. Finally, an incorrect approach would be to focus solely on general knowledge that might be broadly related to the fields of study offered by Alfaisal University, without any attempt to ascertain the specific requirements of the entrance exam. While general knowledge is beneficial, it is not a substitute for understanding the defined scope of the entrance examination. This approach lacks the targeted preparation necessary for an entrance exam and fails to demonstrate an understanding of the university's specific assessment criteria. The professional decision-making process for similar situations involves a clear hierarchy of actions. First, consult official university documentation and guidelines. If ambiguity remains, the next step is to seek direct clarification from the relevant university department, e.g., admissions office. Avoid relying on informal channels or assumptions. Prioritize transparency, honesty, and adherence to established rules and ethical standards in all interactions with the institution. Question 20. Risk assessment procedures indicate a potential need for accommodation for a prospective student applying for the Alfaisal University entrance exam due to a documented medical condition that may impact their performance on the day of the examination. The student has submitted a formal request for a modified examination environment. What is the most appropriate initial step for the admissions committee to take? Option A. Inform the student that accommodations are not possible as per standard examination procedures and advise them to take the exam as scheduled. Option B. Delegate the decision-making authority to the student's academic advisor without a formal review by the admissions committee. Option C. Immediately approve the student's request for a modified examination environment based on the submitted medical documentation to avoid any potential disadvantage. Option D. Review the student's request against the official Alfaisal University entrance, exam regulations, and policies regarding accommodations for documented exceptional circumstances, ensuring all required supporting documentation is present and verifiable. The correct answer is D. Review the student's request against the official Alfaisal University entrance, exam regulations, and policies regarding accommodations for documented exceptional circumstances, ensuring all required supporting documentation is present and verifiable. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a student's perceived academic need and the university's established policies regarding academic integrity and resource allocation. The admissions committee must balance the desire to admit promising candidates with the imperative to uphold the fairness and credibility of the entrance examination process. Misjudging this situation could lead to either admitting a candidate who has gained an unfair advantage, thereby undermining the integrity of the exam, or unfairly rejecting a deserving candidate, potentially impacting the university's reputation and diversity. Careful judgment is required to ensure adherence to established protocols while considering individual circumstances within the defined framework. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a thorough, documented review of the student's request against the Alfaisal University entrance exam regulations. This means verifying if the stated circumstances genuinely constitute an exceptional situation as defined by the university's policy, and if the proposed accommodation is permissible and does not compromise the integrity of the examination. This approach is correct because it prioritizes adherence to the established regulatory framework, ensuring fairness and consistency for all applicants. It demonstrates a commitment to the principles of academic integrity and due process, which are fundamental to university admissions. The process requires objective evaluation based on documented evidence and established university guidelines, preventing arbitrary decisions. Incorrect approach is analysis. An approach that immediately grants the accommodation without a formal review process fails to uphold the regulatory framework. This is an ethical failure as it bypasses established procedures designed to ensure fairness and prevent potential manipulation or unfair advantages. It creates a precedent that could be exploited by other applicants. An approach that dismisses the request outright without considering the possibility of legitimate exceptional circumstances, as potentially defined by university policy, is also ethically problematic. While upholding regulations is crucial, a complete lack of consideration for documented extenuating circumstances, if allowed for by policy, could be seen as inflexible and lacking in due diligence, potentially leading to the rejection of a deserving candidate. An approach that relies on informal discussions or personal opinions of committee members, rather than a structured, documented review against university regulations, is a significant regulatory and ethical failure. This introduces subjectivity and bias, undermining the transparency and fairness of the admissions process. It also lacks the accountability that comes with a documented decision-making process. Professional reasoning. Professionals in university admission should employ a structured decision-making process that begins with a clear understanding of the relevant regulatory framework and university policy. When faced with an applicant's request that deviates from standard procedures, the first step is to identify the specific policy or regulation that governs such situations. This involves consulting official documentation, such as the university's admissions handbook or examination guidelines. The next step is to gather all relevant information and documentation from the applicant to assess the validity of their request against the established criteria. The decision should then be made based on an objective evaluation of this evidence, ensuring that it aligns with the principles of fairness, integrity, and consistency. Any decision, especially one involving an exception or accommodation, must be thoroughly documented, including the rationale and the specific regulations or policies that inform the decision. This ensures accountability and provides a clear record for future reference or review.